Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Abdulghani Gassikia. Je crois que la plupart de vous me connaissent ici. Je suis avocat aussi. J'ai mon cabinet au Nord. I'm an immigration lawyer. And I'll probably be speaking a lot of French. Je vais beaucoup parler français pour qu'on puisse se communiquer directement, du cœur à cœur, entre vous, Inch'Allah. D'accord? Assalamu alaikum.
All right, the outline of the program, we're going to first have a short slide presentation put on by the Muslim Legal Fund of America. And then after that, we're going to go into a series of questions. In the meantime, I'm asking you, as you hear the presentation, if you think of a question, you have a pen and a card, write that question down, and we'll get them to me, and then we'll ask that of the panel. So at this point in time, I'm going to turn the program over to Sister Shahada.
Thank you so much, Brother Mitchell. Like he said, I'm just going to be laying the foundation with the slideshow because I know when people start talking legalese, it's easy to get lost in it all. So inshallah, the slideshow can help guide everybody through that, and then we can get into the questions, inshallah. But before I begin, and this is something I do for all my talks of what would you do to know your rights, is to also emphasize that today's presentation and this entire session is not meant to chill your speech, but it's actually meant to empower you. As we know, we are in an incredibly complex time. We're in the midst of a political turmoil in this country. We're also in the midst of a genocide in Gaza. We're in a time where almost every single corner of this ummah is struggling. And in this time, it has never been more important for us to know our rights because as our elder generation knows, we've been here before in the post-9/11 generation where Muslims were criminalized. And although back then we might have been caught off guard, we as Muslims in this country, this time are not caught off guard. We are not caught off guard because this time we are more united, we are more educated, and this time we have an entire defense infrastructure ready to support all of you. This is exactly how MLFA came out. After post-9/11, when Muslims were being incarcerated and criminalized, we realized that we needed a defense infrastructure. There's actually a video by Tom Homan, who's President Trump's right-hand man, and he said, sanctuary cities like Chicago make it very difficult to arrest these criminals. They are very educated on the matter. So us holding these know your rights, coming together, this is how we beat the system. This is how we keep each other safe, inshallah. All right, so to get started, I'm going to be covering more so free speech in the context of social media and the workplace. How do we look at that, and how do we navigate it, inshallah? So does anybody know how many executive orders Trump has passed since his presidency? Anyone? A lot, yeah. So Trump has actually signed 151 executive orders since January 2025. So that's obviously a lot.
Could you define for everybody what an executive order is?
Yes, thank you so much. So an executive order by a president is basically signing something into law. It doesn't have to go through the court system like we do when we handle cases and everything like that. It becomes law almost immediately. So Trump, on January 29th, he signed an executive order targeting university students who participated in protests or speech critical of the Israeli genocide. It works alongside multiple other laws and executive orders that he previously passed. So it basically directs government agencies to report on possible civil and criminal actions that they take to curb anti-Semitism. So it basically expands the definition of anti-Semitism to include any speech that's critical of Israel. And just to add to this, as we all know, this is retaliation, right? But everything we're seeing today is a direct result of the power of the people have had over the past year and a half. It is to say that the students have been so successful in this movement that Trump had to literally change the entire legal order to criminalize and suppress them. And as we know, the greater the threat, the greater the threat, the greater the violence that is deployed to suppress these people. So that's how I want you to frame this entire discussion. That yes, we are facing unprecedented suppression, but that is a result of the power that the people have had. And it always has been, the more power the people have had, the more that's going to be deployed to suppress that threat. So just keep that in mind, inshallah. All right, so moving on, again, this is just laying the foundation. So the U.S. Constitution, as we know, protects free speech. So the First Amendment says that Congress shall make no law to abridge freedom of speech, freedom of press, and freedom of peaceful assembly. And the 14th Amendment also states that no state shall make or enforce law that shall abridge these privileges. But something to keep in mind is that the First Amendment actually only protects you from government actors. So people come to us all the time that are like, hey, I got fired from my job, but the First Amendment protects you. It actually doesn't. The First Amendment only protects you from government actors. So who here went to a public college? Yeah, I see a few hands in the back. So for a public institution, the First Amendment does apply because it has to be regulated by the government. So Constitution protects free speech from punishment by the government, but not private parties. Who here went to a private college? So I went to DePaul. DePaul is a private university, as we know. So the First Amendment doesn't protect it, but we do have something called Title VI, okay? I know these are really, really legalese, but stay with me because it's very important. So Title VI basically says that you cannot discriminate against someone based on race, religion, or background if you receive federal funds from the government. Most private institutions receive federal funds from the government. So let's say you're being targeted at your institution for being Muslim, for speaking out for Palestine, or just in general for your race. You could, either the First Amendment protects you or Title VI, because again, they cannot discriminate against you for your race, your background, or your religion. So here's a few examples of a sports reporter in Philadelphia loses their job over pro-Palestinian comments. We could use Title VII. In that case, a law firm rescinds a NYU student job offer over Israeli Hamas comments. So we've seen this multiple times before. So again, employees and students can always come to us, and it'll either be used for their First Amendment rights or their Title VI or Title VII rights. So this is again reiterating the difference between Title VI and Title VII. So just know that even if you go to a private or a public institution, even if you work for the government or a private entity, there are protections with Title VI and Title VII. So Title VI applies to schools, hospitals, organizations. Title VII applies to private employers and institutions as well. All right, are you guys still with me? All right, awesome.
Someone have a cab with a license plate 2009TX. They need to move they just asked us to have that person move their cab. I'm sorry, but anybody got that? The not, let's continue.
Typical Masjid announcement. All right, so which speech is not protected? So this is really important. Which speech is not protected under the First Amendment? That is incitement to imminent lawless action, solicitation to commit crimes, true threats, obscenity, fighting words, defamation, child pornography, perjury, or blackmail. So these are not protected under the First Amendment. So what does this mean exactly? What speech is protected? Advancement of political causes and beliefs, statements criticizing public policy and its implementation, expressing opinions on a nation's flag, unpopular or offensive or disagreeable ideas, incorrect ideas or statements. It's not illegal just to be wrong. So basically, if you're speaking up against Palestine, or you're saying free Palestine, or you're saying from the river to the sea, is this protected speech? Yes, technically it is protected speech under the First Amendment because it's a political cause. It has to do with, again, political notions. But if you're inciting violence, inciting rioting, that is not protected speech. And we know that this is not always followed, right? This is not always followed in our time, but what we're seeing is that the courts still are upholding this standard as well. And something that I tell people of like, how do you define or like measure what's protected speech or not? If you were sitting in court, right, If you're sitting in court and somebody brought up a tweet of yours, if somebody brought up something that you said at a protest, would you feel comfortable in that being read? So let's say you said 50,000 plus people have died in Gaza so far. Is that protected speech? Yes. Yes, that's protected speech. But if you're saying every person in Chicago has a duty to destroy this, we must all destroy, all federal buildings, is that protected speech? No. Then you're inciting violence. So just keep it in mind. If this statement of mine was brought in front of me in court, could I defend it? If the answer is yes, you're good. If the answer is no, maybe rethink that for a little bit. All right, inshallah. So, again, moving on, government may prohibit speech advocating for the use of force, government may prohibit speech advocating for the use of force or crime if both are true. If the speech is directed to inciting or producing imminent lawless action, and the speech is likely to produce lawless action. So you can say, hey, I kind of feel like we should riot today. Okay, but the standard is you have to say it, and that has to likely produce that action. So it's a twofold standard for it to actually be not protected speech. All right, so these are just a few examples of protesting, advocating, that's fine. Not good is what you see here, like fighting the police, that's not protected speech. And what we saw on the insurrection in January is obviously not protected speech as well. All right, and just a few examples as well, because I think it's helpful. For Amal al-Fay, we actually, we're representing students at Harvard, Muslim and Arab students at Harvard who were discriminated against by their administration. So we reached a settlement with Harvard, so we kind of won the case. And we forced Harvard to change their policies to be more inclusive of Muslim students on campus. Right? But then Trump signed an executive order to say that Harvard has been anti-Semitic because of these policies, and they froze $2.2 billion in federal funding. So now we're writing an amicus with Harvard against Trump to say that, hey, if they violate our policies and go along with your executive orders, that's violating our law that they promised with us. So it's very interesting. I know it's a little confusing, but what we're seeing now is the rise of lawfare. Because we know that the people have won in the streets, right? The speech and us being vocal in the speech, in the streets, we've almost been victorious in the street of winning this war of consciousness. So instead, Zionists have taken to the courts to suppress our speech, right? They've taken to the courts to suppress our speech and weaponize the legal system, what we're seeing today. It's almost like a battle and a war in the courts. So that's why it's so important for us to know our rights today. And we also represent students at UT Austin for the same reason, and multiple other students and employers. So I'm going to wrap up in a few minutes, inshallah, so we can get to actual questions. At-will employment, again, as we said, it might not be protected under the First Amendment, but it is protected under Title VII if you are discriminated against. But at-will employment specifically, they could let you go at any time. So something that I would suggest, what you should do is first always check the policies of your employer. Always check the policies of your employer. Talk to HR, ask them, what can I say, what can I not say? If you feel like you are being discriminated against, start writing things down, right? Start keeping emails and copies. Write yourself an email of what happened today with the date, and that in itself becomes record, right? So then keep a record of things. Do engage in the process of filing an EEOC complaint within the first 180 days, and this is something that MLFA can help you out with. And then seek legal advice on whether you should actually pursue a legal claim and whether you have a legal claim, inshallah. So we represent multiple professors and employers as well who have faced discrimination because of their background or their religion, or even what they've said on Palestine as well. So this is just an example of somebody that got fired because they said, going to Africa, hope I don't get AIDS, just kidding, I'm white. So when they landed, they actually got fired because these are obviously very discriminatory things to say. So I think, inshallah, I don't want to take up too much time, so if you want to go to the questions, but we will also be talking about how social media is used in civil litigation as well for us. So I'll pass it back to Brother Edward, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. All right, let us take this, I know it's to make sure you understand. We want to reinforce what Sister Shahada said. So, Sam, let me start with you first. What we're seeing right now is things, as Sister Shahada said, that used to be okay, and now they're trying to make it not okay. So what we're looking at is words that you used to, you at one time could say, and no one would challenge you as it being free speech. So now, how do you see that changing in terms of the words that are being used?
You know, we're seeing this shift in a particular phrase that now the whole world is familiar with. It's Free Palestine, right? I see some of the people in this room, they're nodding their heads. Depending on the government, some people are seeing that as hate speech, that saying the words Free Palestine means the elimination or the erasure of another population, when that just isn't true. Now, what is the dangerous part to Brother Abdullah Mitchell's question that he posed is depending who is the executive in the office. We're talking about prosecutors, state's attorneys, attorney generals, or in this case, the White House, in other countries as well. What a phrase could mean to that executive could be the complete opposite of what it is in reality. So having these conversations today about know your rights, and especially when it comes to free speech, and I know the Sheikh, in a moment, will talk about the implications of what that looks like for those of you who are here on green cards or visa revocations. We have to be vigilant and very careful about not reserving and making sure that we're not standing up for our rights, but where are we? Who are we saying this phrase to? And these types of phrases, when are we saying this? Because in the wrong circumstance, with the wrong person at the helm, it could be extremely dangerous for our ummah. So we have to be very vigilant. We'll get into the questions about strategies on how we can be protected.
Thank you.
Can we take that, now that we've looked at the nature of the words, how about looking, once again, that was implied by the attorney Wissam, about the status, citizen versus a permanent resident versus someone who's holding a visa. How do you see this changing language about protected speech impacted because of who you are?
Okay, I'm going to start in English, answering your question, and go a little bit in French and having a conversation with them. When we talk about the First Amendment, the First Amendment does not know the color or the status of whomever it applies to. Everyone living in the United States is supposed to be, I'm carefully choosing my word, right? It's supposed to be protected by the First Amendment. Now, with the administrations that we have right now, whereby students, even green card holders, are very afraid of their status of being deported, and then we need to check ourselves. Now, that goes back to what do we consider as free speech, as our sister first talked about, right? So, free speech, what is the limitation to our free speech? So, because that's where they are emphasizing on. Even many of us, when we fill out our immigration paper, they ask us, do you support communism? Do you support this? Do you support that? Right? So meaning the free speech in the United States has limitation, has exception. Part of the exception is that anything, you do not support overthrow of a government, for example, right? So Supporting overthrowing of a government is not a free speech, right? Supporting communism is not free speech, even though in some countries is the way of government, right? The United States is against communism, and anyone coming to the United States cannot support communism, right? So that is the limits of your speech, of your free speech, for example. Now we are heading to whereby supporting, or we're talking about communism right now. So, but the way things are shaping is almost as if going against Israel, for example, is also is illegal in the United States, right? So we see many professors that have been fired for protesting against Israel, right? So, like Attorney Wissam just said, when you say free Palestine, so it gives the connotation as if you're saying, I'm against Israel, right? Which is not what you're saying. You're saying, recognize the right of the Palestine, that they are people as well, but it gives different connotation, right? So for that reason, so when you don't have your status here, they will prosecute you, right? If you are still, you have a student visa, for example, maybe you will already find yourself in your country before you want to claim your rights. So you don't want to find yourself in that type of situation. So meaning you also have to be very careful. That does not mean that you don't have the right to claim some stuff. However, because you don't want to be deported, you have to be very careful. Ce que nous sommes en train de dire ici, simplement, c'est que aux États-Unis, tout le monde qui est ici a le droit de parler. C'est ça que nous appelons free speech. Nous avons le droit de nous exprimer, droit d'expression. Ça, c'est un droit garanti par la Constitution américaine. Ce droit qui est garanti par la Constitution américaine, ce n'est pas un droit qui est un droit qui n'a pas de limite. Comme on le dit, toute règle a une exception. Ouais. Parmi les exceptions du droit d'expression, c'est que je ne peux pas insulter quelqu'un d'autre, je ne peux pas dire parce que c'est le droit d'expression, la pornographie par exemple, ce n'est pas un droit d'expression. Je ne peux pas me mettre nu au dehors et dire que c'est mon droit d'expression. Tout droit d'expression a une limite. Cette limite-là, c'est de ne pas dire certaines choses. Par exemple, la limite au droit d'expression aux États-Unis, c'est que on ne vous autorise pas à supporter le communisme. Et la plupart du temps, lorsque nous remplissons nos documents d'immigration, on nous pose la question là. Est-ce que vous supportez le parti du communisme, par exemple? Donc, la réponse c'est que c'est non. Si vous supportez le communisme, c'est contre le système des États-Unis. Et par conséquent, vous n'êtes pas autorisé à avoir vos papiers. Donc, il y a de ces droits-là. Maintenant, est-ce que le droit d'expression aux États-Unis est limité à ceux qui sont les citoyens américains? Nous disons non. Selon la Constitution américaine, le droit d'expression est appliqué à tout le monde. Tous ceux qui vivent sur le territoire américain ont le droit de s'exprimer librement. Nous sommes d'accord. Tout le monde peut s'exprimer librement. Maintenant, il faudrait maîtriser les exceptions à cette règle-là. Ces exceptions, par exemple, peuvent vous dire de ne pas dire des choses n'importe comment, de ne pas insulter une autre personne, par exemple. Ça ne fait pas partie de votre droit d'expression. Maintenant, nous sommes en train d'aller au niveau où ça donne l'impression que celui qui ne supporte pas Israël, par exemple, viole une loi aux États-Unis. Nous sommes d'accord. Maintenant, est-ce que ce droit-là, votre statut aux États-Unis, a une influence sur ce droit-là? La réponse est que, normalement, selon la loi, c'est non. Parce que tout le monde peut s'exprimer comme il veut. Par contre, si vous êtes étudiant, le gouvernement qui est là actuellement est en train d'aller contre ceux qui supportent la Palestine. Maintenant, si vous pensez que c'est votre droit de supporter la Palestine, oui, c'est votre droit. Maintenant, vous n'avez pas un statut aux États-Unis et ce gouvernement-là est déterminé à finir avec ceux qui supportent la Palestine, par exemple.
Maintenant, si vous avez ce droit-là et on vient vous chercher à la maison, peut-être vous allez déjà vous retrouver dans votre pays avant de réclamer le droit. Nous sommes d'accord. Parce que vous n'êtes pas citoyen américain. Si vous êtes citoyen américain, vous irez au tribunal, on ne peut pas vous déporter. Si on vous déporte, vous allez retourner dans votre pays. Parce que si vous êtes citoyen américain, c'est que les États-Unis, c'est votre pays. Maintenant, on ne peut pas déporter quelqu'un de son pays. You cannot deport somebody from his country. That's impossible. So, si vous avez la green card, par exemple, avant que vous ne soyez déporté, il y a des procédures. When you have your green card, before you can be deported, there is a procedure. Right? Especially when you have your green card for more than 5 years, you cannot be deported anywhere, anyhow. So, they must take you to the court. There is a process to deport you. Right? So, for those people, because we have seen people with green card, some people went for the naturalization interview and they get arrested by ICE. Can those people be deported anyhow? No. Now, that will take us to discussing how the legal system works in the United States. What can the president do? As our sister said earlier, so some of those arrests have been challenged in courts, right? So before you can deport anybody, you cannot deport U.S. citizen. You cannot deport the green card holder anyhow. What did I do? And then the court will intervene and see whether the government is right or wrong. Thank God there is still a legal system in the United States beside everything that is still working. There is a court system whereby if you disagree with the government, you can sue the government. Right? So, in conclusion, when you have a green card, you have a freedom of expression. When you're a student here, you still have a freedom but you need to be very careful. You don't want to see yourself in your country and then start defending, and that will be too late. Right.
Let me just make a quick announcement, and so this can get cut out of the recording. But there's somebody with a Honda with a U tag that's blocking 2 cars in the driveway. If it's any of you, could you go out there and remove it? All right, let us resume. They gave us a good understanding now, the difference based on citizenship, let's say a permanent resident status, or you're on a visa. But now we want to explore what you can do besides move your lips, i.e. speak. What kinds of things can get you in trouble, if any, besides speaking? And I want to focus in on, arises often in protest, where not only people are chanting, but they may do other things. Let me start, Sister Shad, let me start with you. In your experience and the people you've had to defend, what are some of the actions that the government alleged were outside of protected speech?
Yeah, this is a great question because understanding speech is one thing, but what the government is trying to do is criminalize different actions around speech. So what we've seen, for example, is after the DePaul encampment, for those who are familiar with the DePaul encampment, the school actually made the quad a private property. So anybody there is considered trespass. So the speech itself is not criminalized, but them physically being present in that area is trespass. So I've seen trespass, any kind of graffiti or damage to the property, and they can even cite something as simple. They could cite something as simple as putting up a poster on the wall. So imagine you put up a poster just on a wall here and it created a little bit of paint damage. They would say that you damaged property and that is criminal. So we've seen small things being kind of highlighted, but we remind people that there are very clear limits to protesting, right? So damaging property in any way, any kind of disobeying of direct law there, assaulting anybody else, I'm also an organizer as well, not only an activist. And when people tell me they want to go to counter protests, they want to confront these Zionists directly, I always stop them, not only from a legal realm, but also from an activist and organizer realm. We don't want to engage or validate these people and put our people at risk. So assaulting someone, and it can be as simple as like even pushing them, physically touching them, or even spitting on them can be considered assault that we've seen. So these things are things to keep in mind that we've seen: trespass, damage of property, and assault are all things that are used other than speech to criminalize.
I'm going to chime in about we're in Cook County, just to be specific. So you probably heard over 300 pro-Palestinian protester cases be dismissed within the past, I would say, 16 months. And as long as individuals were peacefully protesting, their cases got dismissed. What did that mean? Essentially, no physical contact with an individual or law enforcement, but also no property damage. However, as of 6 months ago, that protester policy has been eliminated. So, what does that mean today? As of right now, there are many activists and protesters who are actually getting prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law with felony charges and misdemeanors for resisting police officers, for batteries, for property damage, and the list goes on and on. I'm bringing this up to say, when you're out in the streets, just think of two rules: no touching property and no touching people. Think about those two in the most common way. Anything else, right, for the most part, is up for grabs and how you express yourselves. But know, with that peaceful protester policy being eliminated here where we're sitting today, that the level of scrutiny and the level of eyes on your free speech is going to be much more intense.
I think I have one statement I need to make. When we talk about free speech, when we talk about speech, it's very important that we define speech. That just crossed my mind. Speech is not only what you say with your mouth, right? Even when you wear a t-shirt, it's a speech. When I put a t-shirt on, I said, I love Islam. That means I love Islam, right? But when you come to this masjid, today you said, I'm in love with voodoo. You put it on your t-shirt, you come to pray. Everybody will look at you bizarre, like, okay. Or you say, you can say I love Jesus, we'll not take it too much seriously because Jesus is our prophet, right? But I love Christianity. Everybody will look at you like, okay, what are you doing here then, right? So that goes back to the same. So what you put on, or you put a cap on, right, is also a speech, right? Sometimes you put t-shirt on, people look at you, they love them, or they will make a comment about what you are wearing, right? Donc, lorsque nous parlons de, peut-être vous n'avez même pas l'idée, quelqu'un vous a donné un t-shirt, vous l'avez mis, mais le t-shirt que vous avez mis, il y a quelque chose qui qu'on peut lire là-dessus. Vous ne faites pas attention, mais ce que vous avez mis là, vous passez un message aux gens. Donc, faites aussi attention à ce que vous portez. You can wear a t-shirt in that and say, I love communism. I mean, you can defend yourself and say, oh no, I just put the t-shirt on, right? So, to say that when we talk about speech, it's not only what you say with your word, right? Some of your actions also can be a speech, and the clothes you are putting on, your cap also is also another form of speech.
Let me, now based on where we're at, we've got an outline of what we can and can't do. What do you do if law enforcement is violating your right to speech? Can I not resist that person and keep doing? Because I'm exercising my free speech. The real question is, how do you exercise your right to free speech when it is being blocked or challenged? So who wants to take the first crack?
Yeah, I'll talk about it from the law enforcement perspective. Listen, everyone has a right to their body and the sanctity of their body. And if you, for whatever reason, choose to resist a police officer, so for instance, if you're in a protest and you're being arrested for whatever the reason may be, if you decide to resist a police officer and you believe that your life is being threatened and someone wants to make that decision, the phrase I always tell people is decisions have consequences. I'm not here to tell you not to do it. I'm not here to tell you to do it. But just know that police officers will 100% charge you with resisting a police officer as a misdemeanor Class A or a felony. Right? Very unlikely scenario that they won't in that circumstance. So knowing that, right, this is why this session is here, is for that information to be placed at the back of your head, okay? If police, for whatever reason you believe, are, wrongfully discriminating against you, or police brutality is a very real thing in our community, okay, there are some things that you can do to protect yourself. When you go to a protest, something I always tell people is have an accountability partner. What does that mean? Family, friend, community member that comes with you to make sure that you're safe and they're safe. Also, there is a national organization called Nationals Lawyers Guild that serve as legal observers at protests. Their literal job is to answer this question that Brother Abdullah Mitchell just posed, is to protect protesters from any type of wrongdoing, and they are all attorneys. We can give you their phone number in a moment here, and you call them ahead of a protest and you coordinate with them to get them to your protest ahead of time, and they will bring attorneys free of charge to come and observe your protest. And if a police interaction comes, you'll see them, they will run, they will physically run to that interaction and immediately give representation to that person on the ground. Additionally, record the interaction with the police. Yes, by law, police officers in Chicago are required to have body-worn camera. You'll see that on their body vest. However, there's been a bunch of circumstances during a scuffle where the body camera falls off. So it would be your word versus the police officer's word. Okay, so have people, we all know the most famous case that resulted off of a camera was the murder of George Floyd. This woman had won an award even just for standing there and taking this video of him becoming murdered. So have people record those circumstances that you're interacting with police officers, you yourself. Now, what I will say, but people always ask, this is not advised whatsoever, is that someone tries to get in between an officer and someone that they're making an arrest by recording them. So for instance, if a police officer is grabbing the sheikh and I have my phone out, okay, and I get in between the sheikh and the police officer, I'm trying to record in between, now I'm obstructed, I'm literally in the middle of the police officer effectuating the arrest, and now you could be taken in as well. In this circumstance, it would be me. So the phrase I always say is safe distance, okay? Arguably, you trying to rescue and help someone else, you're gonna actually put them in more danger. Why is that? Now the police officer, I see many head nods, have to now escalate themselves and their tactics. Now they have to get more rough with the sheikh, right, to get him. And now they have to get me as well. So safe distance is critical. Preparation is critical, these tips we just talked about right now, and everything with the right evidence, the recordings, photographs that you might have taken of the interaction. Now in a protest, how many people are going to be there, how many witnesses? You'll be able to take care of the rest afterwards, right? But don't put yourself and the person being arrested in harm. Take the right procedures, the right preventative measures, and let it play out.
We got two more questions to kind of round us out. And this is, Imam, let me direct this to you. I got a good friend who's very active. People know him. He's well known among law enforcement. And he says, I'm going back home to visit my family. Then he comes back and he's stopped at the border. What rights? Now, this person's a citizen now. Let's keep that in mind. We may take it down to legal permanent resident and visa, but let's start with the hardest one. I'm a citizen. I'm coming back, and I'm stopped. Give me your phone. Give me your laptop.
What were you doing overseas? Who did you see? What did you say? I want to see any documentation, and the list goes on. What are my rights at that very moment?
Yes, this happened to few mashayikh when they come back from overseas. I think you are coming back to your country. I mean, let's establish that, right? But at the same time, the law enforcement, there is if you refuse to give your phone, you have all right to do that, right? But you cannot refuse to answer like a basic question when you're trying to enter the country. When they put people at the border, we have I say I'm not at the border, but we have CBP, Custom and Border Protections, right? They ask you a question, where do you come from? All those questions you may ask. But when you feel like the questions are going beyond what you can answer, the right to protect yourself also is coming into play, because you don't want to, your Fifth Amendment to say is also in challenge at that point. You can tell them, I cannot answer question. So you have the right not to answer the question. That becomes a search, right? Before they can search your phone and things like that, you need you need something to prove that. Okay, why are you searching my computer? Why do you want to search my phone, right? So as a green card holder, you also have those rights. Now, you don't live here. You come here as a student or you are on a visa, you don't have any right at the border. They can return you. Somebody coming to the United States as a visitor, they can search you, right? Now, a green card holder, this happened outside speech, right? So we're talking about immigration now. This happened quite often. Either green card holder or some people travel with parole. When you travel with parole, that means you don't have a status in the United States yet, right? And they will tell you, when they give you that parole, that you don't have any right to come back, right? So you are leaving the country at your own risk when you have a parole. Now, you come to the United States, sometimes they will ask you for your phone, they will search your phone. We have situations, for example, whereby people, let me give you a direct example, clear to all of us. You submit your paperwork, you are married in the United States with a US citizen, and you went back home. When you went back home, somehow, maybe it's a past relationship, a girlfriend, whatever that case could be, and you went back home, and it happens that you get into other business over there. You came back to the United States, you wanted to enter, they were already doubting of your marriage, and then they stopped you at the border, they said, let's see your phone. At that point, they discover on your phone that, hey, somebody is back home you are dating or you are talking to. Meanwhile, your green card is pending here with another spouse. What happened? We have seen people, they take them to jail right away and they deport them. Right. So the basis on which you are asking for your green card is that you are married to a United States citizen, but you are not faithful because you have to show a bona fide relationship between you and that citizen. Now you are no longer showing bona fide relationship because the United States does not recognize true relationship. You can't tell them that you are cheating with the person you want to meet back home. So cheating with that person also is already a problem, is already a moral character with the US citizen spouse that you have here. So henceforth, they can return you.
right? So I'm bringing that example because we are talking to immigrants, we are also talking about the border, right? But as of US citizen, right, yes, they have a right to ask you some question, but as a citizen, that right is also limited to what they can ask you at the border. So if they want to search your phone, they want to search your computer, you may resist to that. You may, I'm not giving my phone. I'm not. So if you want to arrest me or you want to do anything to me, I have a blue pill with me. So you do whatever you want to do to me. Right? Either so, it's for you to decide whether you want to let me enter, because this is my country. I'm a US citizen.
Yeah, I would just want to answer that, and I agree with everything that was just said. It was beautifully put. And a lot of the work I do is around travel, specifically watch listing and no-fly listing. And though right now there's a lot of fear around travel, and specifically in the context of the U.S. citizens, I'm going to talk about something that you should do. And like the brother said, you have a right to whether you want to give your password to your phone, but they have a right to see whether your phone is functioning as a phone. So yes, you might have to hand in your phone to see whether your phone is an actual phone, but you have the right to not give your password. And they might trick you saying, no, you have to give your password. You do not have to give the password to your phone. If you are under questioning at the border, we really, really recommend that you stay calm. I know it can be very anxiety-inducing and very scary, but stay calm, stay as much as you can civil, because what we've seen is when people get agitated, that gets them more of a reason for the questioning to prolong, and they end up missing their flights. If these questions go beyond the scope of your travel, so let's say they're questioning about what was the purpose of your travel. Yes, you do have to answer that question because it's within the scope of your travel. But for example, we had clients that they started asking them about the Colombia encampments. They asked them, what was your role in the Colombia encampments? Is that within the scope of the travel? No, not at all, right? They're trying to get information out of them. So what you do at that time is you say, I would love to answer your question with my attorney present. Don't say I refuse to answer your question, because then when we go to litigation, they might use that against you. Say, I would love to answer your question once I have my attorney present. And there are certain organizations like CARE and CLEAR that can actually track your flight and make sure you land, and can intervene if you're being detained for more than a couple hours. So they could call the airport and get you representation right away. We at MLFA, we do the after work stuff. So if you've been detained for a couple of hours, if you, every time you fly, you get detained, if you think you're on a watch list, then that's when we intervene and we kind of start that litigation process for you. So something to keep in mind, stay civil, right? Say that you want your attorney present. Do not give the password to your phone. And if you're someone that you think you have a lot on your phone that doesn't want to be searched, take a burner phone. Take a burner phone or clear your phone.
Just to follow up on that, what I have heard from attorneys is that when you get back, they will ask you for a password. And you can say, I don't want to give it, you don't have to, but then they will take your phone, download the information and send it back to you. This is what they have been doing, and they have a right to do that. That's my understanding, I could be wrong. Is that?
They have a right to download what's on your phone and then hand you back your phone, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, if you refuse to give your password, then they say, okay, we're gonna take it, and then we'll download and send it back to you. This is what I've heard people happen, and then I was told, I don't know if that's right, that it is in their right to do so. I don't know.
So this is just like a helpful guide, and whoever wants to answer could answer as well. This is something that we give to people as cards. So I'll read it out one more time. The government has a right to make sure your phone is functioning as a phone, which means you can do it simply by turning it on and being like, hey, this isn't a phone, this is not, a bomb or explosive device. They take note of your phone if they ever take it out of your sight. So that's something that they probably did. If your phone goes through a security inspection and they take it, it may mean they're running additional tests on it, or they're downloading information. So just keep your eyes on your phone even through security. You do not have to give your password. You do have to show that your phone is functioning as a phone. So you can do that by, again, turning on your phone, going through it quickly in front of them. And also, your Face ID doesn't count as a password. I'm gonna say that again, your Face ID doesn't count as a password. So they can't take your phone and and show you it like this and unlock your phone and then could download it, right? Because it's not a password. So we recommend taking Face ID off. And then a few other tips. If you have the choice whether to provide the password to unlock your phone or not your phone, choose not to unlock it. If you do not, TSA may detain your phone and keep it for up to 2 weeks. That's if you do not want to unlock it. If you choose to provide your password, consider the following. Upload all images to an iCloud, disable face recognition, log out of all apps, take a screenshot of your call log right before going through security. And again, same for your sent messages and text messages. And if questions go beyond the scope of your travel, say again, I will answer when my attorney is present. So this is some cards that we have as well.
So what you said is, if you don't, they can take it for up to 2 weeks and return it.
Yes, yeah, these cases are very, very rare, but we have seen some clients, when they refuse to give their password, they can take it for up to 2 weeks, but they usually get it within a few days.
And then one tip I also heard is, if you are not given their phone, even if you unlock it, put it on airplane mode.
Exactly.
This way they cannot go to the cloud, and they have no right to do that.
Exactly, yeah, we recommend logging out of iCloud. The easiest way is to take a burner phone, but I know that's hard for people. So if you're traveling international especially, when you come back, we recommend resetting your phone completely. So that means you almost wipe it completely.
We could just go to questions. Yes, a lot of questions.
I got a question, we referred to it earlier, social media. Someone, we had a question from the audience said, well, I'm online, the things I'm saying are true, I'm not saying anything that's threatening, etc. I'm just sharing the truth. But now the problem is they're being doxxed. What advice, if any, would you give to individuals who are now being doxxed for supporting the causes like we're dealing with now?
I can take this very quickly, and whoever wants to add. We always get questions about doxing. Unfortunately, from a legal standpoint, we can't do much about other people doxing you, but there are protections you can do beforehand. First, don't use your legal name on social media. Have a nickname on social media, use your something else, but not your first, last name. It's just an easy way to dox and to make you very searchable. We also say that if you've been doxed by Canary Mission, these blacklist sites, make a LinkedIn, make other social media accounts so it goes down on the Google search engine. So when people search your name, it's not the first thing that comes up. Also, in terms of how to not get doxxed, again, just make sure you're using proper language, right? When describing certain issues, make sure you're using language that if your employer found it, you wouldn't be too caught off guard. Again, if it was brought in front of a court, you wouldn't be too caught off guard. We say that the social media is kind of like a time machine. Once something's there, it almost can never be taken down. So just be very intentional about what you're putting on social media. Don't put your legal first and last name, and then use other accounts to kind of bring down where you've been doxxed. But if you feel like you have been fired from your job because of your doxing or to that extent, then you can contact us and we can help you with legal remedies in that way. But for sites like Canary Mission, unfortunately, there's no legal realm at this point for us to pursue, but we recommend taking action beforehand, before that happens.
No, they asked me to summarize what you just said in French so everybody can be on the same page. Ce que nous sommes en train de dire actuellement, c'est, nous sommes en train de parler des médias sociaux. C'est ça, c'est comme ça on dit, non? Réseaux sociaux, merci. Nous sommes en train de parler des réseaux sociaux. Nous devons contrôler ce que nous disons aussi dans les réseaux sociaux. Aujourd'hui, le gouvernement a des moyens par lesquels ils peuvent contrôler tout ce que nous sommes en train de faire sur les réseaux sociaux. Et parce que nous avons posté des choses là-bas, on peut on peut nous fixer. Donc, par conséquent, nous devons beaucoup faire attention. Maintenant, la dame avocat, elle est en train de suggérer que, par exemple, il faut éviter d'utiliser votre nom légal, c'est-à-dire Gani ou Gassikia, exactement comme je l'ai écrit sur les réseaux sociaux, par exemple, pour que ce ne soit pas très facile à vous chercher sur les réseaux sociaux. Contrôlez aussi ce que vous dites sur les réseaux sociaux pour que vous ne soyez pas suivi par le gouvernement avec tout ce que vous dites sur les réseaux sociaux.
All right, let me, if I may, kind of wrap up our conversation. And we did receive 3 questions from the audience. Well, really 4, but let me address them this way. 3 of them are asking specific legal advice on a situation. The attorneys cannot give legal advice. They have to be in attorney-client relationship on here, so it's not fair to you or to them to take that question at this point in time. But the 4th question, another question really is on an unrelated matter. It's not the subject of the discussion today. And the 4th question is on a matter. I will give them a hit on it. Probably, Imam, you were dealing more from an immigration point of view. But I want to inform you that on June 25th, we're going to have a virtual presentation like today. We're going to bring immigration attorneys back to discuss this whole situation about your rights under the push for deportation of individuals. It's being virtual, so no one has to feel inhibited about attending. But let me just pose this one question to you in a very general way. And it really was about if someone is in the midst of deportation proceedings, what, if anything, kind of governs where they're deported to? We've seen instances where people are from they send them to an entire different country. They have I've never been to El Salvador, someone says, but they're sending me to El Salvador. Is there anything legally that you know that a person in that kind of situation can have some sort of discretion if they do have to be deported where they go?
It may be a little bit hard for me to answer the question because everything looks so much confusing. But what I know as a procedure is that when they want to start a proceeding against you as an immigrant, there is a document we call NTA, Notice to Appear. On the Notice to Appear, they will say all charges against you will be on the document. You are not a U.S. citizen. You are a citizen of so country. And this is the reason why we are going after you. And then we found out that you are deportable. And because you are deportable, we deport you to so country. So when they put the notice to appear down, we as lawyers will look at it, we say, we admit the charges, we conceive removability, and we usually decline to choose a country of removal should that be necessary. Because indirectly is as if you are telling them, deport our client to so country. We don't do that. But the lawyer of the government in court, the lawyer of the DHS, will choose the country of nationality of that person, right? So, in fact, we have a situation whereby a parent is from country A, but on their way coming to the United States, probably they live in Brazil. Most of the time it's Brazil, and they have a child there. That child is Brazilian, right? And then it becomes a problem whereby, okay, if the child is a minor, what country do we deport that child? They will choose Brazil, even though the parents is from another country. But that child, his citizenship, his nationality is Brazil. So they will deport that child to that country, unless the parent can prove that that child is also a citizen of their own their own country, and then that child has to dual citizenship, and they can also choose the country of citizenship of the parents. So, in essence, you deport somebody to a country of the nationality. You don't deport them to another country. So, what is happening now is that they have like a third. They have an agreement with those countries. I think UK also is doing the same thing, whereby when people, because there are countries that are refusing to collaborate with the United States in taking the citizen back, right? So what they're doing now is that third country, you gave the example of El Salvador, so we say, okay, I will take them, I will give them paper, I will put them, they will be fine here in my country against the money the United States will give that country and say, if their country refuses them, bring them to me. I will give them paper and they will be fine. At that point, they can say no.
Government policy.
You want me to say that one in French?
No.
Okay, yeah.
La question qui a été posée, c'est que, bon, nous voyons des situations, ça nous concerne beaucoup. Nous voyons des situations où on veut déporter quelqu'un, la personne, je ne veux pas dire, elle est du Bénin, puisque je suis du Bénin, donc c'est facile, je choisis le Bénin. La personne est béninoise, maintenant on le déporte à El Salvador ou bien on le déporte au Vietnam. Je donne un simple exemple, hein. Est-ce que c'est légal? Est-ce que la personne peut résister ce genre de déportation? Et je suis en train d'expliquer que la plupart du temps, lorsqu'on arrête les gens à la frontière, on leur donne un papier. Et sur le papier, on mentionne le nom de leur country, de leur pays d'origine. Donc, en cas de déportation, le gouvernement suggère à ce que la personne soit déportée à son pays d'origine, son pays de nationalité. Maintenant, il y a des pays qui ne collaborent pas avec le gouvernement américain, qui disent, moi je ne les prends pas. Peut-être ils ne donnent pas leur passeport ou bien ils n'acceptent pas. Donc, lorsque nous avons des situations pareilles, le gouvernement américain se dit, bon, je vais les amener où? Maintenant, ils entrent en contrat avec un autre pays, ça peut être le Mexique, ça peut être un autre pays, où le gouvernement américain leur donne beaucoup d'argent, ils disent, ok, ces gens-là, ils ne veulent pas retourner dans leur pays refuse de les prendre. Nous allons les prendre contre l'argent que le gouvernement américain va leur donner, et le pays là qui les prend leur donne un statut dans le pays là où ils peuvent rester sans problème. Donc le pays là dit, je les protège. Vous voulez une protection, non? Les États-Unis refusent de vous donner cette protection-là. Mais il y a un autre pays qui n'est pas votre pays d'origine. Ou soit vous choisissez de retourner dans votre pays d'origine, vous rendez ça facile au gouvernement américain. Mais si vous refusez et que votre gouvernement aussi refuse de vous prendre, les États-Unis peuvent vous amener n'importe où, ils s'entendent avec ce pays-là, et ce pays-là accepte de vous prendre, et ça fait la fin de l'histoire.
All right, I misspoke. I have one more question. All right, what is that one question? Well, you know, I have a lot of imams who I know and are good, close friends. And now they're concerned. They are strong advocates and proponents for Palestine. But they heard about this case down in Florida where Imam said the Israeli officers are acting like the Nazi soldiers during the Holocaust. Whoa, did that excite the Florida legislative agencies? And this Imam was also a professional dentist. They wanted to revoke his license. They wanted to strip the tax-exempt status of the masjid. So, whoa, you know, the masjid, the imams don't want to jeopardize their mosque. What would you say to imams in terms of from speaking from the minbar, what they can and cannot say in being an advocate against genocide?
You want to go ahead first?
Remind yourselves about the 501c3 status versus a C4. And for those of you who might not know, the C3 status means you're a nonprofit. So Masjid-Al-Farooq here is a nonprofit. C4 is once you start entering the political world. For instance, Masjid-Al-Farooq cannot go out and endorse a candidate, right? Congressman Jesse Jackson, and say, we endorse Congressman Jesse Jackson for Congress this year, right? So this masjid can't do that. So let's go back to the Florida masjid here. What I would recommend to our esteemed shuyukh and to the leaders on the boards, and I work very closely on the chairman of the Mosque Foundation Civic Engagement Committee, is to just stay within the parameters of speaking about Islam on the advocacy side of our deen. What does that mean? So him comparing, them to Nazis is outside of that realm, right? It's outside of that. Now, whether that's his personal opinion or not, that's one thing. But okay, and so stay within the C3 realm. Don't get political, right? Publicly, especially with our shuyukh and the board of directors, you have a bigger mission to fulfill to our community. There are plenty of political activists or strategists or elected officials who can say these words. Now, we're not saying be silent about this issue. Absolutely not, right? But connect it back to the deen. That's what I always talk about. No law enforcement agency can come after you when you're connecting it back to that religion. That comment specifically had nothing to do with Islam, for instance, right? Too far to say nothing, obviously, in relation to our brothers and sisters being massacred, but stay within that lane of the Islamic perspective, and don't step into, when we talk about political candidates or government entities, that's now stepping into the C4 realm. And because of that, like Abdullah Mitchell just talked about, that's when law enforcement agencies can now revoke your 501c3 status and use your charity and tax write-offs and things like that, and that can be very dangerous for the institution.
Yeah, thank you so much, Wissam, and thank you so much, Brother Abdullah. Very important question, because I think we're at a time right now where we especially need our Islamic leaders to be the backbone and to guide us. So I think this is a question that not only shuyukh are wondering, but also everyday people of kind of what is the boundaries here. And I caveat everything Wissam said. I don't want to be repetitive, for the difference between 501c3 and 501c4, very important. But I think also remembering that first and foremost, Islam is a religion of justice and mercy. So bringing that into everything, right? And there's no need to use inciting words to get your point across. Islam itself, the Quran itself, has enough for us to guide us. So again, just not using inciting words, but instead letting Islam connect us. And that's not without saying, do not talk about the current political moment and what, Palestine may need of us as a Muslim ummah, but using Islam to guide us. And the last thing I would say about that is there's something I always tell shuyukh and even just everyday people of, do not let the fear control you, but let the risks inform you. The reason the backlash was so extreme for that specifically was it was exactly wanting to be retaliatory, to show that if shuyukh speak up in this way, that this is what will happen to them, to make them an example. Even with Mahmoud Khalil, it's no coincidence that he was taken out exactly a week before the genocide of Gaza resumed. We have to understand the landscape that we're in, that everything is being used as an example, as a retaliation to show this is what will happen to you if you speak out. So do not let the fear control you, let the risks inform you, right? So be strategic with how you speak out and know that we are all here again together, that we have gone through this before and we survived, and inshallah we will go through it again, and we will not only survive, we will thrive together, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Well, once again, we thank you for your patience. You're listening. And there is a sign-up sheet over there, because this is not a one-and-done process. You need the need to remain informed. It's changing. Sister Shahada informed you there are 150, I forgot the exact number, but I remember 151 different letters, they're called executive orders, that Trump felt, okay, today, let's do this. let's do this. And a lot of them are directed against us. So it's very important that you understand these, and we intend for these series, and like I said, the next one, I want you to make sure you get notice of it, give them your email address, and we'll make sure you get a link to it, because it's going to be talking about some of the issues that the Imam just spoke about. Okay, it's going to be dealing with this deportation. And for the leaders of Masjid-Al-Farooq, it's very important that you attend the HR meeting on the House of Representatives meeting on June 14th, because on that day, we're going to have a presentation about the risks that masajid face in the climate that we have today. It's very important that you become involved and active in this process, because there's an old saying, if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. So we don't want you on the menu. We need to be active and aggressive and enforcing our rights, exercising our rights that we are granted by living and being citizens of this particular country. So with that summary,
I have a question, but it goes back to a specific question.
can we reserve that off there? So Imam, would you do us a favor, inshallah, and close us out with a dua? We would thank you, but before you do, let me once again thank the leadership of Masjid-Al-Farooq for making this session possible to share this information with you, members of the community. And I also want to thank the members of the panel for taking their time out here in the first 10 days and sacrificing their time to be and share with you, so you can better understand and be more informed as a Muslim living in the United States today.
And Brother Mitchell, we'd like to thank you and Dr. Hamada and Serena for putting this on all the way in the back. She's CIOGC for putting on this really much needed program in our community to all the Masajid.
Actually, just again, thank the presenters. We know this is a busy time and everybody is busy, but thank you for making the time and coming here and working for our community. Jazakumullah khair.
وإياكم.
So you're gonna do the dua in French too?
You should do it in Arabic.
Yeah.
اللهم آمنا في أوطاننا وولي أمورنا خيارنا ولا تولي أمورنا شرارنا وارفع مقتك وغضبك عنا ولا تسلط علينا بذنوبنا من لا يخافك ولا يرحمنا يا أرحم الراحمين يا رب العالمين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.